Once again, we've got some major updates on Arch Manning's commitment. We'll cover every school from what I like to call Arch's Big Six, including one in particular that Arch's head coach Nelson Stewart seems to be in love with. Like to the point where he seriously seems to be dropping hints on what the Manning camp is feeling. And we also have some encouraging news for a school that seemed out of it, but appears to maybe be making a potential comeback. Not sure if I'm buying it, but we can still go over it and you can let me know what you think. And finally, we have reasons to expect a commitment much sooner than originally believed. Obviously a lot to cover, so stay tuned for that and more. And thank you to the Coldest Water for sponsoring this video. First off, Stewart mentioned that Arch had a goal of getting his completion percentage up. And you want to know what he did? He goes 11 for 11, 4 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and leads his team to a 70-0 win. So if you haven't already, you can add efficient to the list of superlatives to describe Arch Manning. Anyway, you probably are already aware of just how good he is. We don't need to spend any more time on that. What we do need to get to is his college visits this fall. Arch has already visited Georgia and Alabama. I know some people have made a little bit of a deal about him being in Georgia gear while in Athens and not wearing any Alabama gear while in Tuscaloosa. Sure, if we really overanalyze, that could be looked at as a positive for Georgia or Ole Miss, who was Alabama's opponent that game. But come on, I mean, I'm willing to run with some loose theories on this channel, but that one seems to be pushing it just a little too much. Georgia fans sure were excited and showed Arch just how much they want him to play for their team, and it seems that feeling may be reciprocated. Arch has called Athens the coolest college town, and Stewart said Arch loved his visit there. And with Alabama, well, Rivals National Recruiting Director Adam Gorney thinks they are currently the leader. Which, to be honest, surprised me a little bit, but I guess when you look at what they've managed to do with Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, and now Bryce Young, who is a Heisman candidate, on top of all the championships, you'd have to be blind with hatred to not see the appeal. Still, despite all that, listen to what Nelson Stewart told 24/7 Sports about Texas. Coach Steve Sarkisian is far and away one of the most authentic coaches I've ever talked to. I think when you talk about all of the Zooms all the time, he's really the only head coach. I remember the first time I saw him. He's always available for a question and for text. He formulated a real relationship. To me, I think he is a quarterback genius. Just the things he notices from footwork to drops, his passion and attention to detail, even talking to him about play calling and how he controls the pace and all the things he does. He's definitely one of the best offensive minds in the country, and he's a really good quarterback coach. And remember earlier in this video when Stewart said that Arch loved his visit to Georgia? Well, that interview took place immediately after Arch's visit to Athens, and there's a little more to that quote. Without any prompting, Stewart decided to throw in Texas as well. Here's what he said. Arch goes to Georgia, he's going to love it. He goes to Texas, he's going to love it. Out of nowhere, with the Texas visit still a month away, Stewart decides to bring up Texas. And it wasn't like Texas was the next visit either. Could that be yet another hint towards Texas? Now, that's a theory I'm willing to run with. There's 2 different ways to look at this, because obviously Stewart is a big fan of Texas and Sarkisian. The first one is how Stewart is in Arch's ear every day. I don't think he means to sway Arch, at least not purposefully, but I think it's impossible when you're that involved to not let your opinion affect what you say at least a little. Arch would look at his coach for advice, and clearly if there's anything being asked about Texas, Stewart is going to go above and beyond for Sarkisian. And the other way to look at this is Stewart is just parroting what Arch and the Manning family feel. The family has been hesitant to give out many details to the public, But Coach Stewart seems to be far more willing to give his thoughts on what's going on. It's not really a stretch to say outside Arch's parents, Stewart probably knows better than anyone on how Arch actually feels. He's been in those Zoom calls with Arch and college coaches, and obviously they're in the office or on the field together every single day. When Sports Illustrated's Daily Dogs blog is calling this a race between Georgia and Texas, that tells you how serious Texas is in this. Sarkisian is visiting Newman tonight, and Arch is going to Texas this weekend. Arch already said Austin feels like home, and if you listen to the words of his coach, it sure sounds like Texas could be the running favorite. Now for the other schools in Arch's Big Six. Let's begin with LSU, who I consider as the 6th out of 6. According to Dan Patrick, LSU would have to fire Ed Ogeron to get into the Arch Manning mix, and he said they would do it too. So I guess you could look at that as an encouraging sign maybe for LSU with a fresh start. But to be honest with you, it's just too little too late. Arch doesn't want Ogeron, and I don't think there's a chance he would want to risk going into a program starting over with a new coach. Next up, Ole Miss. Yes, they are still in the picture. And I think Lane Kiffin is right there with Sarkisian as the two coaches who want Arch more than anyone. Kiffin made his rounds, of course, on social media a few weeks ago when he unfollowed everyone except for Arch. That's the commitment and loyalty Kiffin is trying to show to Arch. And with the way Matt Corral is playing as the current Heisman co-favorite, that's a good sign to convince Arch over a school like LSU or Clemson, who are currently headed in the opposite direction. By the way, Corral seems to be buddies with Arch, so you know he'll be talking up Kiffin with the success they've been having together. Moving on to Clemson, at one point it seemed like they could be the potential favorite. Obviously, they're having a down year. I do think it's worth noting that Dan Patrick's source thinks Clemson is still right in the mix. Arch will visit the school again on October 30th, so there's still moves to be made, and don't discount Dabo Swinney's ability to recruit just because they're having a down year. Now finally, I want to leave you with one thing Gorney said. This recruitment and the fan hysterics around it might not last much longer. Manning is taking visits, the family is doing its due diligence, and after so long, there's only so many times a recruit can talk to head coaches and get an understanding of the program before a decision just has to be made. Manning is not one for the theatrics and popularity of the recruiting process. So it sounds like we should be expecting a decision sooner than we thought. With Clemson as the final scheduled visit on October 30th, maybe it won't be too long after that. And that quote that he must have gotten intel from someone within the Manning camp, well, that's a bad sign for LSU and the last remaining outlier, Stanford, who Arch never even visited but was talking with for longer than we expected. As always, let me know what you guys think. Does any of this recent info change things? I think so. Let me know in the comments below.